All right, so get this. In 1930, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, you know the guy who gave us the super logical Sherlock Holmes? He died. But according to one really strange book, his story wasn't over, not by a long shot. In fact, his final and maybe his most important case was just getting started. So today, we're diving into this bizarre text that claims to be a direct message from Conan Doyle himself, channeled from beyond the grave, all to set the record straight.
So you gotta ask why. Why this crazy, unprecedented message from the other side? Well, the book's preface has an answer. It claims that Conan Doyle, being this man of, profound integrity, discovered something shocking after he died. He realized that the spiritualist beliefs he'd spent his life championing, they were actually flawed. And apparently, heaven itself couldn't hold him back until he corrected the record. This was a mission, he said, that came from pure, simple honesty.
And that right there sets the stage for his final, most personal mystery. To really get what this mission was all about, we have to first understand the man himself. And let me tell you, he was a true paradox.
I mean, this was the central puzzle of his entire life, right? On one side, you have the total rationalist. He was a doctor. He created Sherlock Holmes, the absolute embodiment of logic. But on the other hand, you have the believer. A guy who was so passionate about spiritualism, he spent a fortune trying to prove we could talk to the dead. And this huge conflict, well, it's the key to everything that comes next.
Which brings us right to the book's big explosive claim. It turns out his life's work wasn't actually about fighting for spiritualism, it was about correcting it. His ultimate case, the one that really truly mattered, was all about using his brand new perspective from the great beyond to show everyone a deeper, way more complex truth than he ever could have imagined when he was alive.
Okay, so how did this message even get through? You might be thinking a simple seance, right? Nope, this was way more complicated. It came through a whole network of mystics. Think of it like a spiritual special ops team, all assembled for this one cosmic transmission.
The main person on the receiving end was an English medium named Grace Cook. She was apparently pretty well known for talking with her spirit guide, this wise entity she called White Eagle. And for this job, White Eagle was basically going to be the heavenly switchboard operator, patching the call through from Conan Doyle.
But here's the twist. Grace Cook didn't just get the call out of the blue. The instructions to get ready actually came from this super secretive group in Paris called the Polaires. And this brotherhood, they claimed they were getting their own messages from these highly enlightened beings they just called the Sages, who are apparently the ones orchestrating the whole thing from behind the scenes. And this is where it gets really weird. So the Polaires used this tool they called the Astral Oracle. And the process was just wow. First, you write a question in Italian. Then you convert the entire question, names and all, into numbers. An operator then psychically sends this numerical question out into the ether. Then they get a whole mess of figures back in reply, which then had to be translated back into a coherent message. It's just wild. And it was this bizarre mathematical oracle that told them, hey, go find Grace Cook and get ready. Conan Doyle's coming through.
So this, let's be honest, pretty unlikely team was assembled. And what was their purpose? Simple. To help the spirit of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle deliver his urgent final revelation from the other side.
Which of course brings us to the million-dollar question. After all of that incredibly elaborate setup, what was the message? What was so important that it absolutely could not wait? Okay, the first bombshell was a massive correction to everything he'd ever believed. Doyle, from the other side, was now claiming that most mediums, well, they don't actually contact the soul of your loved one. Nope. Instead, they're tapping into what he called a sea of astral memories, basically a psychic echo that gets left behind. It's like they're hearing a recording, not actually speaking to the person. So, to get beyond this world of echoes, a soul has to go through something the book calls the second death. Now that sounds grim, but it's not really an ending. It's more like a graduation. The soul sheds its astral body, the part of it that's still clinging to all those earthly memories and its old personality, and that allows it to move on up to higher, pure planes of existence. And apparently this was the exact process Conan Doyle himself had to go through before he could speak with any real authority.
And this whole idea becomes the real core of his message. See, he wasn't just correcting some details about psychic phenomena. Oh no, he was laying out a completely new map of the soul's journey, and maybe even a new map of reality itself.
And this led to probably the most radical idea in the entire book. According to the new Doyle, when you die, you don't just go to some prepackaged heaven or hell. Instead, you enter a reality that is literally constructed from your own thoughts and your own emotions. Your inner world becomes your outer world. Which, when you think about it, sounds a lot like some modern ideas in psychology and mindfulness, right? This idea that our perception, our internal state, fundamentally shapes the reality we experience.
So, this new reality, it was governed by a few core principles. First off, your thoughts are literally creative forces. Second, good and evil, they're not these warring opposites we imagine. They're more like complementary, balancing forces. Third, think of destiny as the path laid out for you, but your free will is how you choose to walk it. Then there's the idea that our souls evolve over many, many lifetimes. And, maybe most importantly for anyone who's lost someone, a true reunion is possible. Not with just an echo, but with the actual person in a special, higher place called a sphere of reunion.
And this whole evolution of the soul is a journey, with different stages. First up, you have to navigate the astral planes. That's the world you literally built for yourself with your thoughts. Then, after that second death we talked about, you reach the mental planes. This is a place for contemplation, for really understanding and integrating all the lessons from your past lives. And finally, if you make it, you can ascend to the celestial worlds, where you actually become a creative being, a co-creator with the universal force. But this whole revelation, it wasn't just some abstract philosophy. No, it was meant to be a practical system, one designed to solve humanity's biggest problems, starting with, of all things, physical illness.
The basic premise is this. Any physical illness is just the final symptom of a much deeper problem. All disease, the book claims, actually comes from a deep disharmony between our physical, our psychic, and our spiritual bodies. And the roots of that disharmony can stretch all the way back, across multiple lifetimes.
So to treat this, Doyle supposedly laid out this whole comprehensive healing system. People were categorized by elemental types, earth, air, fire, or water, and each type had its own specific psychic centers and needed unique treatments. We're talking everything from color ray therapy for the fire types to psychic and magnetic healing for water types. It was basically a form of cosmic, personalized medicine.
But this healing system, it wasn't just about fixing one person's health problems. It was actually part of a much bigger master plan. This new universal religion was supposed to heal all of humanity on a massive scale to get us ready for a coming global crisis that the book ominously called the Years of Fire.
So, in the end, what do we make of all this? Is it a genuine, incredibly complex message from the creator of Sherlock Holmes, a man reaching back from beyond the grave to correct his life's greatest passion? Or is it just an amazingly detailed, fascinating story that shows how deeply we all need answers, how much we want to map to the ultimate mystery? The book makes its strange and intricate case, but, as always, the final verdict is yours.